Hi, my name is Evelyn Neely, and I watched The Laundromat, which is a story about money laundering and how shell companies are formed, and they are a means to hide assets, money, and just practice tax avoidance. So it's about this law firm called Mossack and Fonseca. So it's these two guys, and they're like narrating the whole movie. And so two specific scenes that have like these two guys in it that I think stood out to me and were similar to what we've talked about in class would be when one of them was talking about just how he started out in this field. He was like, yeah, like I really wanted to help the meek and the underprivileged. Like I wanted to be this really awesome lawyer that could represent these people who have never been represented in their life, have never been advocated for. And so he thought that if he could be a really good lawyer, he would be able to help. But he was like, but it became too hard. So then he got caught up in this whole money laundering thing. And he was like, yeah, I wanted to do good, but it ended up being bad. And so I think a company that kind of exhibits some similar traits of that would be when TC Transcontinental came in with Emily. It felt like they were kind of putting on a show of like, they were really trying, they said that they really wanted to try to do good. But they were like, but we still need plastic and we still need to use plastic, and whatever you guys think doesn't matter because we're still going to use plastic. And so I think it just all like came to, we have this idea of like being sustainable, but realistically we need plastic. I also think that Sea Change is a really cool company. So I think that contrast, so like Emily's company validates what the guy was saying, but Sea Change is like, actually no, like you don't have to, like everything doesn't need to end up corrupted. Like there can be good in this world, and I think with their company like trying to help businesses become sustainable, yeah, it's just super cool that it doesn't have to all end up to crap. The second scene is when they were the guys at the law firm were explaining the difference between privacy and security, and not security and secrecy. They were talking about how a lot of the people that they work with just want privacy because they don't want people to know what's going on behind their closed doors, because they have some very suspicious activities. It was really disheartening. A lot of it was pretty gruesome. And so I think that two companies, maybe definitely not as bad as that, but I think Kroger, they really want you to focus on their like zero waste, zero hunger plan, but they don't want you to look at any of their other like sustainability efforts. And so I think that they were kind of focused on like being pretty secret with what they were doing, but putting the focus on the zero waste, zero hunger. But I think Bath and Body Works was doing a really good job of being transparent. And he was like, yeah, like I just came here just trying to start up our sustainability efforts. And so I think that they really contrasted with what they were saying of like, not everyone needs to be private. And sometimes, and I believe that being transparent is better for business. The last scene that I'm going to talk about is when the main character, Ellen, so she has just gone through this tragedy. Her husband died, but she can't pin his death on anyone in specific. Like, no one is wanting to take accountability for it, and she's not even getting compensation for it, because it was like every company was blaming it on another company that wasn't even real. And so she was like sitting in this church, and she was like started praying about how she wanted to forgive these people and how she shouldn't be focused on the money, and how like all of this is just way too big. But it just ends with her being really frustrated and overwhelmed with all of the things that were going on. And I think in the sustainability world, that is very prevalent. Rebecca Garrison from Huntington Bank talked a lot about how the sustainability world is politics, and politics are hard and they're disheartening, and it's just a constant disappointment a lot of the times. And so I think that really relates to what the main character Ellen was going through, where she was like, I'm just so overwhelmed with all of this. I also think that a lot of our guest speakers that came in, specifically like Nicole Kimsey, when they were talking about their past jobs at companies that didn't really care about sustainability, they were also super disheartened, and they were like, I just want to like find a place where I can feel like my values are being valued as well in the company, and I'm being represented in that way. And so I think that yeah, a lot of people, when they're in companies that don't care about sustainability, they just feel like nothing that they're doing means anything. And I think that relates to what Ellen was talking about. But since this film's released, so it was based on a true story. Mossack and Fonseca was a completely real law firm, and all of this did actually happen, and it all came out when the Panama Papers came out. And so this was this big data leak. It said like, I think 11.5 million files were leaked, which just exposed everything. Exposed all of the tax avoidance, it exposed all the offshore accounts and the fake business entities, and just brought everything to light. But the hard part was that it was actually legal. Like, what they were doing was technically legal. It just was very morally corrupt and wrong, and it was to hide people who were doing horrible things. And so I think that, like, yeah, it just brought to light a lot of the issues with our business world. And so since this film has been released, I think it helped to bring a lot of light to like what goes on. And thankfully, Mossack and Fonseca, like after the Panama Papers happened, they shut down. And they were not, like, they could not come back from that blow. It was too hard. And so I think like things are beginning to change, but I do think that corruption, is just like, that's the big part of it was that it's all corruption. And so it's just hard to watch this, and look at it and be like, okay, well, what is specifically what we can do? But I think just being more transparent in nature, like I was talking about with Bath and Body Works, like, I think that once people stop hiding behind closed doors, and I think there's a law that's about to get put in place, where businesses that like shell companies or whatever have to have a beneficial, their like beneficial actor or whatever has to state their name. And so they have to go public with that. And I think that could change a lot of things. Just when you take the secrecy out of it, people don't want to like get their reputations ruined. So I think that's specifically like what needs to change. And I think this has changed my perspective on business sustainability, and that like it's just so hard. Like, corruption is so real, and it's really disheartening like what is actually going on in the world. So I think it's nice, like in class we've had so many guest speakers and so many companies that are actually doing good. But I think that just like the movies focus on greed and jealousy and all of this like causing death and adultery and loneliness, like all of these really hard topics, it's just really disheartening. But I have hope for companies like Sea Change that want to like actually work to get businesses to do better. And I think that like lessons that future businesses could learn is that the only thing that is going to keep a business sustainable and keep them like in good reputation is for them to have a deep purpose, like what we were talking about with Ron J. Galatti's book. And so I think like if businesses stay away from the shady activities and keeping secrets, they're not going to have any worries about getting like found out. And so I think that like just having a good foundation for a company is super important. But overall, The Laundromat was a crazy movie, but it was fun to watch and fun to see how that ties into the topics that we're learning about.